Yo, they say a woman's intuition is everything. Intuition, what is intuition? Is intuition not a deeper faculty given naturally from a universal creator to universal creations? When did intuition become gender-based? Superstition, social cliches, stereotypes. We've bought into way more, we've familiarized ourselves way more with than reality, fact, and truth. Somebody tells us something factual. They tell us something truthful based on reality, and we argue and contest it out of the familiarity with our illusions that we're constantly consumed with. We're always telling people what we think, what we feel, what we intended, what we were trying to do, what we were trying to say. Talking about a woman's intuition. Girl, you're suspicious. You're traumatized from all the attachments and bonds with people who were reflections of the state of mind that you were occupying at the time. You weren't even traumatized by bad men. And there's no such thing as a good man traumatized by terrible women. The dating pool is in the state that it's in because everyone is playing the blame game. If women would take accountability for their errors and men would take accountability for their errors in the process of coming together, joining forces as one, then we can make some progress. But y'all want to point fingers. Now, point a finger at me, I'm going to slap it down. Because like I said, what is it to be intuitive? For me to be operating on intuition, I have heard on the inside of myself something that prepares me for the present moment that I found myself in. Where does such preparation come from? Where does such provision come from other than the creator, the universal creator, who has universal creations, who have been endowed with the same universal gifts? I just need to know. I need to know when women became more intuitive than men, even though both men and women operate with the female and male gender encased in their container. I need to know. I need to know how you've determined that that is intuition and not suspicion. I need to know how you've determined that that is intuition and not the power of the tongue. You've been on the phone with people talking about what you think dude doing. You've been on the phone with people talking about what the last dude did. And now you're chasing behind your present partner. So you call them. And you're checking for fault. And as you check for fault, you eventually find fault. Not because everyone is faulty, but because your thinking is faulty. You're creating your own chaos. You like feeling bad, but you're not willing to admit it. You like people pitying you. You like for people to feel sorry for you. You like for people to look over at you, shake their head, want to rub your back, and make you feel better. And that's why you refuse to acknowledge how you keep dropping the ball for yourself, how you keep coming up short, and how no one else is the culprit in this particular crime except for you. Is you. Talking about a women intuition. You going through phones. Source didn't whisper anything inside of you. You're unsettled. You don't meditate. You don't listen. You don't operate on wisdom. You're operating on suspicion. You're not operating by faith. You're not operating by knowledge of what you know. You're not trusting that the one you know and what you know is always in operation. That's not how you've been moving. You've been trying to identify fault, trying to identify error, trying to identify danger. You've been walking by sight. You've been walking by perspective. You've been walking by your own interpretation. And you know your understanding is limited to your previous experiences. And you know it's a ton of places that you have not been. It's a ton of things that you have not done. You feel some type of way about it when you stop and think about the places that you want to go that you haven't been. When you stop and think about the things that you want to do that you haven't been able to do. You have emotional reactions to these things. And then that creates another limiter on your ability to hear clear, conscious conversation from your creator on the inside. You full of chatter, you're full of noise, you're full of toxic emotions, you're full of irrelevant habits, you're consumed with passing pictures that are supposed to be nothing but clouds in your kingdom. When you are genuinely preoccupied with your purpose, when you are outside moving in motion, you're not trying to see what shape the clouds are making. You don't even care if it rains. You got things to do. And nothing, no condition is gonna stop you or distract you, even if there's some type of obstacle that detours you. Who gets to a barrier in the road, going down a path to their destination, sees that there's a roadblock, signs that say detour, and just park the car and sit down? First of all, are you still expecting to arrive to your destination? Second of all, I question whether you ever intended to get there in the first place. Because people who have a desire see it to completion. Desire is intoxicating, just like anger, just like happiness, just like fear. You be telling people that you want stuff that you will not act on. And that's just an indication to you that you've been lying to them and yourself. And you should sit down and reassess. You've been living with this chaos in your head, carrying ideas. In your head, you got $1 million business sitting here. You got a $100,000 hustle over here. You have ambitions for your support groups. You have all type of philanthropy ideas. You got all kind of stuff going in your head. Where is it at? Did you write it down on paper? You know Canva has a free account. You ain't got to pay for it. You ain't got to get the one you got to pay for. What you need to remove backgrounds for? You need to remove the background noise out of your head so that you can focus on your purpose. Then maybe you can make a couple dollars and you can get the version to take the backgrounds out and you can make your presentations look pretty. But right now, it's not about showing other people pretty presentations. It's about getting the chaos in your head down on paper, organized, structured, and into a flow of business. Understand the economy is changing. Society is changing. There was a time that the people who worked hard were better off than the people who could work smart. Now, I'd beg to differ. If you are intelligent, if you are smart, if you are tech savvy, if you have the ability to communicate, if you have people skills, if you can interact, if you can create anything, and you are still finding yourself financially struggling, you're still finding yourself living below your means, then you have a barrier in your head about yourself that's dictating negative outcomes for you. It's not the culture no more. It's not society standards. It's not the economy. Everybody is not hurting. Everybody is not down. I'm sorry that you let your family members, I'm sorry that you let your relatives over $25 that you was trying to borrow get you convinced that this whole world is going through it right now. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That's not true. That's an illusion that they bought into, that they would like for you to believe so that you would stop asking them for help. Intuition ain't got nothing to do with being a woman or a man. Intuition has everything to do with being quiet, being still, being undisturbed, being tapped into your source, being in a habit of communicating with your creator. I understand they call it, y'all, some call it prayer, some call it I don't care what you call it. Ain't no right and wrong way to talk to your daddy. What I'm telling you is, if there's a source, if there's a force that gives you the ability to accomplish all things, if there's a father who has left the inheritance of abundance, peace, joy, happiness, fulfillment, full provision, you better tap in and you better get all of that. Cause ain't nothing out here. People be saying ain't nothing in the streets. Ain't nothing in the streets. Ain't nothing at your job. Ain't nothing nowhere other than the one place that exists in actuality. You get caught up in the dream. You get caught up in the hype. You get caught up in the conversation. All because your purpose was never set and it was never clear. Because you were chasing pictures in your head instead of putting the plan down on paper. You were striving, trying desperately to find people that could make it happen for you, instead of you setting your eyes on the one who called you to the purpose. You can't help me do what I'm trying to do, to the point that I grow desperate and give my attention and start taking orders and requests from you. What I'm trying to do is so big that even if you decide to partner with me 100%, we still need help. What I do depends on intuition. If I don't hear the whisper inside of me, I don't push record. I'm not a female. I'm not a woman. Why would, you know how many people done died? How many people were murdered? How many people were hurt? How many people were left alone, estranged from their children? Everything they had destroyed because a woman or a man found out that something that wasn't supposed to be happening from their perspective, their partner was doing something that they didn't approve of. They could no longer accept them. So in the rejection of their partner, they did something hurtful, harmful, sometimes irreversible. And you mean to tell me that in your peanut of an understanding, our Creator, our Father, whispered the petty gossip in your ear that sent you to break in the phone, take screenshots or pictures with your phone of another person's phone that you wasn't even supposed to be in, and sit with it and stew on it to the point that you can no longer control your emotions and then your actions? You gonna put that on God? If you're gonna put that on God, then what is it that you put on Satan? If you've been saying all of your life that the devil can give gifts too, what gifts the devil give? Deception? Getting you convinced that you see something that you should act on when there is nothing there? How about you take accountability for the attachment that you have to this person, to the point that when they do something that you don't approve of, you feel like you have such ownership that it's left up to you to discipline, correct, realign, and get right. That's ridiculous, because I beg to ask you, do you hold yourself to the same standards? Do you hold yourself to the same accountability? Or do you constantly make excuses, justifications? Do you talk about your intentions when people are talking about your actions, but then talk about other people's actions and overlook their intentions? Because understanding is never what you were trying to cultivate. You were just operating from the zombie act of defense of the illusionary self that you were familiar with. Intuition ain't gossip. Your creator is far more interested in what you are doing on a mental level. There is no danger in the physical realm. We act like Source has such a reason to talk to us on a physical level because there are so many detrimental things on the physical level that could harm us and stop us from the completion of our purpose. But remember, we're not operating on fear. We're supposed to be operating on the knowledge that we are eternal as our Father is. So if I'm operating on the knowledge that I'm eternal as my Father is, then how could I also be simultaneously operating on the premise that there are so many detrimental things around me that I need to keep my antennas up and make sure that nothing hurts me? Can I be hurt or not? Have you been intuitive? Or have you been suspicious? Have you been a scientist of no substance? Or have you been a student of truth? Intuition doesn't have a gender. Intuition is no favor of persons. Source will speak clearly to anyone who's listening. But Source is not a gossiper. Source is not caught up in the physical realm the way you are. Source is constantly calling you back to the spiritual realm that runs and governs the physical realm that you get caught up watching. Girl, I knew when I went over there, I was going to see him over there with that girl. I knew when I went in that car, I was going to find something on that floor. That's why I went down there looking. If you went down there looking for it and you knew you was going to find it, then why didn't you address them until after you got back? You were operating on suspicion. If you had time to go down there to the club where you thought they was at and you found them with the girl that you thought they was going to be with, it's probably because long before tonight you've been preoccupied with what this other person was doing with their body instead of being preoccupied with what you were doing with your brain. What you were doing on the mental plane. You lost sight of yourself a long time ago. And this person that you are judging is but a reflection of the lack of focus that you've been moving with. But you can't even see you in that person because they playing kissy face with somebody that's not you. And you running behind them, stressed out, just as unfocused. Looking just as goofy. Hey, if we're going to be scientists, man, let's do some reading. If we're going to talk about intuition, let's talk about it in a truthful way that aligns with our Creator. Let's stop throwing words around, especially if we don't know what they mean. Lock in. Love. Safety.